I want to start by saying that I consider myself a careful person. I've been using Airbnb for years, and I've never had a bad experience. I always read reviews thoroughly. I always check the host's profile. I always look at the photos carefully before booking. I'm not the kind of person who rushes into things or ignores red flags, which is why what happened during my stay in Nashville last spring has shaken my confidence in a way I haven't fully recovered from. Because I did everything right. I checked every box, and it still happened. I was in Nashville for a work conference. 4 nights. I booked a studio apartment in a quiet residential neighborhood, about 15 minutes from the convention center. The listing had over 40 reviews, all positive. The host, a man named Daniel, had a verified profile with a clear photo and a response rate of 100%. The apartment looked clean and modern in the photos. Good natural light, a proper kitchen, a comfortable-looking bed. I arrived on a Tuesday evening around 7. Daniel had left a lockbox with the key code in our messages the night before. I let myself in, looked around, felt immediately comfortable. The apartment matched the photos exactly. Clean, well-maintained, everything where it should be. I showered, ordered food, watched some TV, and went to sleep. Normal first night. Nothing unusual. The second day was the conference. Long and exhausting. I got back to the apartment around 9 in the evening, poured myself a drink, and sat down on the couch to decompress. That's when I noticed the clock. It was a digital alarm clock on the small shelf unit opposite the bed. Standard looking. The kind you find in guest rooms everywhere. Nothing remarkable about it, except that it was positioned at an angle I found slightly odd. Most clocks on shelves sit flush against the wall or flat on the surface. This one was angled slightly outward, pointed toward the bed, like someone had adjusted it deliberately. I told myself I was tired and overthinking. I moved the clock so it was flush against the wall, set my alarm for the morning, and went to sleep. The next morning, I woke up, and the clock had been moved back to its original position. I had been alone in that apartment all night. The door had been locked from the inside, with the deadbolt engaged. Nobody had come in. Nobody could have come in. But the clock was back where it had been, angled outward, pointed at the bed. I picked it up. It was heavier than it should have been for a basic digital alarm clock. Noticeably heavier. I turned it over in my hands and looked at the back, and that's when I saw it. A small circular lens, maybe 5 millimeters in diameter, barely visible against the dark plastic of the casing, positioned so that when the clock was angled toward the bed, it had a direct line of sight to anyone sleeping there. A camera. There was a hidden camera inside the clock, in the bedroom, pointed at the bed, in a property that had 40 positive reviews and a verified host with a 100% response rate. I put the clock face down on the shelf immediately. I got dressed, packed my bags, and left the apartment within 20 minutes. I didn't touch anything else. I called Airbnb from the street outside and reported it. I filed a police report. I documented everything with photographs. Airbnb removed the listing within 24 hours. Daniel's profile was suspended pending investigation. What I still don't know is how many guests stayed in that apartment before me, how many people slept in that bed, while that clock sat on that shelf angled toward them, how long it had been there, what happened to the footage. I have stayed in hotels exclusively since that trip. I check every smoke detector, every clock, every USB charger, every picture frame in every room I sleep in that isn't my own. I found one camera. I don't know how many I've missed. I booked the Airbnb with my boyfriend Ryan for our anniversary. We wanted somewhere nice, somewhere that felt special. Not a hotel with identical rooms and corridor noise and a vending machine down the hall. We wanted something with character, something that felt like a real place rather than a temporary space. We found it in a small coastal town about 3 hours from where we live. A converted fisherman's cottage, stone walls, low ceilings, a wood-burning fireplace in the living room, and a view of the water from the bedroom window. The listing photos were genuinely beautiful. The reviews described it as romantic and peaceful, and exactly what we were looking for. The host was a man named Gerald, older gentleman, based on his profile photo. His listing description mentioned that he had owned the cottage for 30 years and converted it into a rental 5 years ago when his children moved away. He described himself as a local who loved sharing the area with visitors. His reviews mentioned how helpful and responsive he was. Several guests said he had given them restaurant recommendations and local tips that made their stay significantly better. We arrived on a Friday afternoon. Gerald was there to meet us in person, which isn't unusual for smaller properties. He was exactly as his profile suggested. Late 60s, friendly, knowledgeable about the area. He gave us a thorough walkthrough of the property, showed us how the fireplace worked, pointed out where the extra blankets were kept, and gave us a handwritten list of his favorite local restaurants. He seemed genuinely lovely. He left around 5 and Ryan and I had a beautiful first evening. Fireplace going. Good food from one of Gerald's recommended restaurants. The view from the bedroom was exactly as advertised. We went to sleep, feeling like we had chosen perfectly. I woke up at 2 a.m. to the sound of footsteps. Not from outside, not from the street, from inside the cottage. Slow and deliberate footsteps on the wooden floorboards of the living room directly below our bedroom. I lay completely still and listened. Ryan was asleep beside me. The footsteps continued, back and forth, unhurried, like someone pacing slowly in the dark. I woke Ryan. He listened for a moment and then got up and went to the top of the stairs and called out asking if someone was there. The footsteps stopped. Silence. Ryan went downstairs and checked every room. Every door was locked. Every window was closed and latched. Nobody was there. He came back upstairs, and we convinced ourselves it was the building settling. Old stone cottage. Temperature changes overnight. Perfectly normal. We went back to sleep. At 4 a.m., I woke up again. Gerald was standing in the bedroom doorway. Not a silhouette, not a shadow. Gerald, the host, standing in the open doorway of our bedroom at 4 in the morning, looking at us sleeping. I screamed. Ryan woke up immediately. Gerald didn't run. He didn't panic. He stepped back calmly and said he was sorry for startling us, that he had forgotten to leave the spare key and had let himself in with his own copy to drop it off. At 4 in the morning, while we were sleeping, Ryan told him to leave immediately. Gerald apologized again in the same calm, measured tone and left. We heard the front door close. We heard his car start outside. We didn't sleep again that night. In the morning, we found that Gerald had indeed left a spare key on the kitchen counter, which meant he had walked through the cottage at 4 a.m., gone to the kitchen, left the key, and then come upstairs and stood in our bedroom doorway, watching us sleep before I woke up. We checked out that morning and drove 3 hours home without stopping. I reported the incident to Airbnb. They investigated and ultimately sided with Gerald, determining that he had a right of access to the property and had not technically violated any policy by entering to leave the key. What they couldn't explain, what nobody has been able to explain to me satisfactorily, is why he came upstairs. The kitchen is on the ground floor. The spare key was on the kitchen counter. There was no reason to go upstairs. No reason at all. I have thought about that doorway every single night since. About how long he was standing there before I woke up. About what he was doing in the living room for the 2 hours before that. About all the guests who stayed in that cottage before us, who never woke up at all. I travel for work about 8 months out of the year. Flights, hotels, rentals, Airbnbs. I've stayed in hundreds of different places across dozens of different cities. I've developed a thick skin about it. Strange rooms don't bother me. Unfamiliar sounds don't keep me awake. I can sleep on a plane in a middle seat with a crying baby 2 rows back. I'm not someone who gets unsettled easily. I am telling you this so that you understand the weight of what I'm about to say. What happened to me at the property I'm going to describe was the most frightened I have ever been as an adult. More frightened than anything that has happened to me in all those hundreds of nights, in all those unfamiliar places. And the thing that frightened me most wasn't something that jumped out at me or threatened me directly. It was a door. The property was a large, converted Victorian house that had been divided into individual rental units. The host, a woman named Patricia, managed several units within the building. I had booked Unit 7, a 1-bedroom apartment on the 2nd floor. Patricia ran the operation professionally. Prompt communication, detailed check-in instructions, a welcome booklet in the unit with information about the building, local amenities, checkout procedures. The welcome booklet included 1 page that caught my attention. It was a list of house rules. Standard stuff. No smoking, no parties, quiet hours after 10. But at the bottom of the list, there was a single additional note that was formatted differently from the rest. Slightly larger font, bold text, underlined. It said, "Do not attempt to open the door to room 11. That was it. No explanation, no context, just the instruction. I looked around my unit. The front door was the only door visible from inside. I checked the hallway when I arrived. A narrow corridor with 3 other unit doors visible. None of them were numbered. The units in this building weren't numbered at all, as far as I could tell. My booking confirmation referred to my unit as Unit 7. The door to my apartment had a small printed 7 on it, but I hadn't seen any other numbers on any other doors. I messaged Patricia and asked about room 11. She responded within minutes. She said it was a storage room that wasn't part of any rental unit, and that the door was old and fragile, and she didn't want guests accidentally damaging it by trying to open it. Reasonable explanation. I accepted it and moved on. That night, I woke up at around 3 a.m. needing water. I went to the kitchen, and on the way back, I stopped. There was a door at the end of the hallway inside my unit that I hadn't noticed before. Not the front door. A second internal door, set into the wall at the far end of the hallway, leading toward the back of the building. I had walked past it twice without registering it. It blended into the wall almost perfectly. Same paint, same trim, just a barely visible door frame and a handle. There was a small, tarnished metal number screwed into the wood just above the handle. 11. I stood in that hallway for a long time looking at it. The booklet said not to open it. Patricia said it was a storage room. I am a rational adult who was tired and needed to be up early for work. But I had been in this unit for 6 hours, and this door was inside my apartment, not in a communal hallway, not in a shared area of the building, inside my private rental unit. And nobody had mentioned it. Not Patricia's messages, not the check-in instructions, not the welcome booklet, except to tell me not to open it. Why would a storage room door be inside a guest's private unit? I went back to bed. I didn't open it. I lay awake for 2 hours thinking about it, and I didn't open it. In the morning, I packed my bags and went to check out. I messaged Patricia to ask about the door inside the unit. She said she wasn't sure what I was referring to, and that there was no internal door in Unit 7. I sent her a photograph I had taken of it at 3 a.m. She didn't respond for 6 hours. When she finally did, she said the photograph must have been taken in a different unit and that she would look into it. I never heard from her again. I went back to the property 2 weeks later, out of curiosity. I wanted to see the building in daylight. I wanted to look at it from the outside and understand the layout and figure out where that door led. The building had been listed as unavailable on Airbnb. All of Patricia's listings had been removed. Her profile no longer existed. I have searched for information about that building and that address online many times since. I have found nothing unusual. No news stories, no incident reports, nothing. Just a door at the end of a hallway that nobody will acknowledge exists. I still think about what was on the other side of it. I think about it every time I check into somewhere new and walk through the rooms and count the doors. I count them very carefully now, every single one. That is it for today. Stay healthy, stay safe, and be close to your loved ones. And I'll see you very, very soon with a new video. Subscribe.